Hello everyone. Today's pre-application webinar for the OVC Fiscal Year 2026 Tribal Victim Services Set Aside Formula Program Notice of Funding Opportunity will be presented by OVC's Tribal Division Director, Labrita White Sr., Tribal Affairs Specialist, Kimberly Woodard, Grant Specialists, Ramisa Pitts, and Lori Gardner, and will provide an overview of one of their available grants. Thank you again for watching. Now let's turn things over to Labrita.
Thank you so much, Serena, for getting us started, and greetings to all who have joined this pre-recorded webinar. I am Labrita White, the Director of the Office for Victims of Crime Tribal Division, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the session, this particular recorded session, and our goal is to provide key highlights on the FY 2026 Tribal Victim Services Set-Aside, or TVSSA, application process. I must say it's wonderful to have many current TVSSA grantees join to listen into this session, as well as several tribes who are new to the TVSSA program. Because you successfully completed the population certification process, you were invited to complete Part 2 of the TVSSA application process. As part of OVC's mission, we administer grant programs funded by the Crime Victims Fund, which consists of criminal fines and fees paid by convicted federal offenders rather than appropriated dollars. Each year, Congress authorizes OVC to use a portion of these funds to support victim service grant programs. So as outlined in the TVSSA Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, which was published in May, we are pleased to announce an increase in available funding for awards the Department of Justice Office of Victims of Crime is allocating this year $90 million in FY 2026 funding for federally recognized Indian tribes, Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act regional corporations, and tribes authorized designees. These funds will support vital services for American Indian and Alaska Native crime victims. Okay. We anticipate grants being awarded to more than 300 tribal communities to provide a wide range of services for crime victims, from counseling and civil legal assistance to emergency housing and tribal wellness ceremonies. To note, in FY 2025, OVC made 231 set-aside awards totaling over $79 million. We know you would agree with us that this tribal focused program is critical, since the highest rates of crime victims in the U.S. occurs in Indian country. And we are also mindful of the cultural differences remote locations experience and challenging jurisdictional issues that lend to the complexities in serving tribal communities. With this in mind, over the years, the OVC Tribal Division has been intentional to learn how to best administer this program through what we learned from consultations, listening sessions, and meetings with tribal leaders and our grantees. If you applied for our funding in 2025, you may have noted that we then streamlined the application process that previously created barriers for tribes seeking victim service funding. The Tribal Division now offers application support and significantly reduced the application burden by replacing lengthy narrative documents with a streamlined questionnaire featuring checkboxes and abbreviated response options. So now let's talk a little bit more about what's new for FY 2026 as far as our funding structure, which now has a 5-year project period for all awards. FY 2026 TVSSA grant recipients receiving an initial award may request supplemental funding throughout the 5-year project period to continue or expand services and activities. Simply, what you must do is complete a TVSSA population certification form and submit required information through grants.gov and Just Grants when you have made a decision to apply for funding made available each fiscal year of the 5-year project period. Your FY 2026 grant will be your initial award to begin the 5-year project period beginning October 1, 2026 and ending September 30, 2031. So what you'll have are the opportunity for annual supplemental funding allocated via a formula from FY 2027 through FY 2030. Those funds will be added to the initial award and tracked separately. You also will have the flexibility to skip years based on your needs and available funding from prior awards. So you may ask, what are the benefits of the new process? This new approach reduces reporting requirements by 83%. That is significant, allowing you more time to serve victims directly. You'll manage one grant with a single set of reports instead of juggling multiple grants with different numbers, deadlines, and reporting timelines for awards made between FY 2026 and FY 2030. And so just wanted to give you some general updates or highlights on what's new, what to expect with the FY 2026 TVSSA application and award process. Before I close, I do want to share a few reminders. Construction projects and services for families of missing or murdered Indigenous persons are available and allowable expenses for the TVSSA program. Also, please note a NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity correction. There was a minor error on page 4 of the NOFO. The correct end date for the 5-year project period is September 30th, 2031, not September 30th, 2030. Again, the corrected end date for the 5-year project period is September 30th, 2031. So again, in closing, I must say we're delighted to have you review this recording and invite you to attend the upcoming office hour sessions to receive additional information and support in preparing your proposal narrative questionnaire, your budget narrative, and as applicable, planning for construction projects. Thank you for joining us. Please don't hesitate to contact your grant manager or reach out to us at the OVC Tribal Set Aside at usdoj.gov email address with any questions or to request assistance. Please know we appreciate what you do daily in your communities to address the needs of crime victims and survivors, your victim-centered advocacy, shelter care, and general availability to bring comfort to those who need it in the most challenging times of their lives is critical and greatly appreciated. At this time, Lori Gardner, Remisa Pitts, and Kimberly Woodard, OVC Tribal Division staff, will provide you with more specific information related to the application process. Lori Gardner will get us started with today's presentation. Again, thank you all for joining, and Lori, take it away.
Thank you, Librita. In this recorded webinar, we will talk about OVC's mission, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, including the funding opportunity focus, eligibility, and required documents. Then we will talk about the application process and resources. It will be helpful if you're following along with the NOFO and taking notes, which will help you when you're submitting your application. Next slide, please. The Office of Justice Programs, or OJP, provides grant funding, training, research, and statistics to the criminal justice community. The offices listed to the right are under the Office of Justice Programs. OJP is one of 3 grant-making components of the Department of Justice, along with the Office on Violence Against Women and the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. Next slide, please. The Office for Victims of Crime, which is part of the Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs, administers the Crime Victims Fund. The Crime Victims Fund is financed by fines and penalties from convictions in federal cases and not from tax dollars. This funding supports formula programs to states, territories, and tribes, as well as many other OVC grant discretionary programs for victims of crime. And now for the next slide, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Kimberly Woodard, to talk about the NOFO.
Thanks, Lori. I'm going to review the key details from the OVC FY 2026 Tribal Victim Services Set-Aside Formula Grant Program Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO. Next slide, please. There are two very important deadlines all applicants should keep in mind. First, all applicants must complete their submission in grants.gov by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, August 6th. All applicants must complete the submission process in Just Grants by 8:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, August 13th. And as a reminder, each award made in FY 2026 will have the same start date of October 1, 2026. Next slide, please. Applicants seeking priority consideration should specify in the proposal narrative questionnaire which of the following goals the project is intended to advance and how it will do so. Please note, addressing these priority areas is one of many factors that OJP considers in making funding decisions. Receiving priority consideration for one or more priority areas does not guarantee an award. Next slide, please. The activities on this slide and the next are not within the program scope and will not be funded. Please be sure to review this guidance carefully as you prepare your application. Additionally, as you prepare your application, be sure to refer to the budget detail form for further information on allowable and unallowable costs that may inform the development of your project design. Next slide, please. The information on this slide and the previous slide is available in the program description section of the NOFO if you'd like more time to read over that. Next slide, please. Awards made under this NOFO will be issued as grants. Next slide. OVC's Tribal Victim Services Set-Aside Formula Grant Program provides support to tribes to enhance services for victims of crime through activities that address the needs of a wide variety of crime victims. The TVSSA grant awards are to be used to improve services for victims of crime through activities such as direct services for victims of crime, traditional healing practices, community needs assessments, strategic planning, construction or renovation, program development and implementation, program expansion, and other activities to address the needs of a wide variety of crime victims in tribal communities. Applicants are encouraged to use grant funding to support trauma-informed and victim-centered services that reflect your tribal community's culture, values, and traditions. Next slide. Since the Tribal Set-Aside program began in 2018, OVC has made hundreds of TVSSA awards, which now provide healing services for thousands of victims in tribal communities across the United States. The type of crime victims that can be served with this grant funding is very broad. An applicant may choose to submit a grant proposal that addresses all types of crime victimization in their tribal community, or they could choose to address a specific type of crime victimization or develop a specific new service to address a particular crime victimization type. Funds can also be used to access training and professional development to build staff capacity to serve any type of crime victim. Next slide. While these funds can be used to provide a wide range of services for victims of crime, there are statutory limitations on how the funds can be used. This slide summarizes the costs and activities that are statutorily prohibited under grant programs funded through the Crime Victims Fund and includes some examples of costs that are generally unallowable within TVSSA grant projects. These activities include offender services not related to crime victimization, costs associated with law enforcement investigation or prosecution activities, equipment to support law enforcement activities or to monitor perpetrators of a crime, costs associated with operating a court or correctional facility or probation or parole units, legal services for criminal defense and tort actions, primary prevention activities. The focus of this funding is on improving the response to victims after a crime occurs. All outreach and education to tribal communities should be to increase awareness and understanding about crime victim issues and inform the community about services available to assist victims. Also included in the prohibited activities and costs are food, beverages, meals, or refreshments that are provided at meetings, conferences, or trainings. Trinkets such as hats, mugs, t-shirts, gift bags that are given away at meetings, conferences, or trainings. It also includes a prohibition on lobbying, fundraising activities, consultant costs that exceed the allowable DOJ rate of $650 a day or $81.25 per hour. If your application contains unallowable costs or activities, you will be asked to remove them from your application. Please note, you should review the NOFO and allowable and unallowable cost chart carefully. OVC staff have updated the NOFO and chart to provide greater detail about the ways in which TVSSA funds can be used to support services to families of MMIP and to support renovation or construction activities. OVC staff are available to answer questions you may have about allowable or unallowable costs or activities. If you are a current grantee, please feel free to contact your OVC grant manager. If you're a new applicant, please email the OVC Tribal Victim Services Set Aside email account. Next slide, please. Now, let's take a look at what's new with the TVSSA program for FY 2026. Next slide, please. As you may be aware, OVC consulted with tribes in FY 2025 about potential changes to the TVSSA program that are designed to lessen the administrative burden posed by managing multiple set-aside awards simultaneously. OVC has given a lot of thoughtful consideration to how we might best approach this challenge. We have introduced a new framework for the set-aside program in FY 2026. The biggest change is with the grant award project period. All applicants will now receive an award with a project period of 60 months or 5 years. This includes an initial award and up to 4 supplemental awards based on need. Next slide. Tribes who apply for funding in federal fiscal years 2027 through 2030 will receive supplemental awards. Supplemental awards are used to increase the funding, but not the award period. A tribe who applies every year of the 60-month funding cycle would have their annual set-aside allocation added to the budget for their FY 2026 TVSSA award. This means tribes would have the same award number for the entire 60-month funding cycle. Next slide. Some of the intended outcomes of the new framework are presented on this slide and the next. Tribes will only request supplemental funding if they have a need and they can feasibly expend the funding within the 5-year project period. Tribes will not have to submit individual performance and financial reports for each supplemental award, and OVC will hold sessions with tribes to help them develop applications and budgets for the initial and supplemental awards during the 5-year project period. Next slide, please. The funding for each award will remain available for expenditure by the tribe through the end of the 5-year period. For example, FY 2026 funding will remain available for expenditure through September 30th, 2031. And finally, tribes will submit an abbreviated application to receive their set-aside formula allocations in years 2 through 4 of the cycle. Next slide, please. We know most of you who have joined us today currently have more than one set-aside award that your tribe is currently managing. For example, you may have an FY 22, 23, and 24 TVSSA award. If you apply for funding in FY 2026 to continue program activities approved under your FY 2022 award, you will receive your FY 2026 allocation as an initial award. Please keep in mind that until your older awards close, you will continue to manage them individually using the pre-FY 2026 set-aside NOFO guidance, not the new framework. Next slide. We anticipate tribes may experience as much as an 83% reduction in the amount of required reports for each set-aside award. Under the old process, recipients would submit 150 reports for 3 active awards over the course of a 5-year period. Under the new schedule, recipients would submit 25 reports. That is 125 fewer reports or an 83% reduction. Next slide, please. OJP policy does not permit award periods to extend beyond 60 months. The proposed 60 months funding cycle for set aside for the TVSSA program would mean that OVC would not be able to offer tribes project period extensions for awards made in or after FY 2026. Tribes would still be able to request a project period extension for a pre-FY 2026 set-aside award that has been open for less than 60 months. Next slide. Again, this new framework would result in tribes having just one grant award number. Just Grants only permits users to have a single grant award administrator, a single alternate grant award administrator, and one financial manager per award number. As previously mentioned, tribes who receive a set-aside award after FY 2026 will have the chance to apply for supplemental funding to continue their pre-FY 2026 project activities. If your tribe currently has 2 or more open TVSSA awards with different individuals assigned to the grant award administrator or financial manager role for each grant, this will change as you apply for funding under the 5-year framework. Each of these roles has different responsibilities. The grant award administrator is responsible for editing, submitting programmatic related award requirements, including performance reports, certain grant award modifications, and portions of the closeout package. The alternate grant award administrator can perform most programmatic actions, such as submitting performance reports and initiating or submitting grant award modifications. This position is considered to be a backup or a support for the grant award administrator. A financial manager certifies and submits financial information and all federal financial reports on behalf of the tribe. Next slide, please. Recipients can still request approval to make adjustments to awards issued under the new framework. Programmatic grant award modifications would be necessary to modify programmatic activities under the initial and/or supplemental awards. Budget modification grant award modifications would cover both initial and supplemental budgets. Next slide. This chart provides a comparison of how current and future set-aside grant awards are managed. It is a summary of the previous slides that we just went over. Next slide, please. Some of you may be wondering what happens if my tribe gets an initial award in FY 2026 and only applies for supplemental funding in FY 2028 and FY 2029. In this scenario, the tribe would receive supplemental funding in FY 28 and FY 29 and report on those expenses and activities under the FY 26 award number through FY 2030. Next slide. Another question you might have might be, what if my tribe does not move forward with an FY 2026 TVSSA application? Applicants who withdraw from the FY 26 TVSSA application process can apply again in the future for an initial award. The 5-year award period will start when your tribe receives an initial award. Now I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Ramisa Pitts, who will review how to complete a proposal narrative questionnaire.
Thank you, Kimberly. Let's talk about the proposal narrative questionnaire. As Kimberly mentioned, the proposal narrative questionnaire is a required document that must be submitted with your application. So to be considered for funding, your application must include the SF-424 that must be submitted in grants.gov. and the proposal narrative questionnaire, which must be submitted in Just Grants. Next slide, please. The proposal narrative questionnaire should be a well-constructed questionnaire that helps your tribe during monitoring. It simplifies your reporting and it sets your tribe up for success before the first dollar of your award is spent. Your goal in drafting your proposal narrative questionnaire should be to submit a plan for your proposed project that is clear and easy to understand, that is consistent with the TVSSA program requirements, and it should be realistic and designed to cover the entire budget period. Next slide, please. The proposal narrative component has 8 sections: the applicant information section, the project summary, the description of need, the project design and implementation, the project goals and objectives, the project staff, the project management, and the contractors, and consultants or sub-recipient section. It is designed to be a structured document that answers the questions OVC will ask from the start to the end of the project. A strong proposal narrative questionnaire anticipates the challenges your tribe will face in developing and implementing your project and include a plan to address them. Next slide, please. The applicant information section is one of the other components that I mentioned. In this first section of the questionnaire, you are asked to submit basic information about the tribe or organization that is applying for funding. One item in this section can trip up some applicants, which is the section that asks to list each federally recognized tribe, consortium, or authorized designee who will be served by the proposed project. If you are applying as an individual federally recognized tribe, you should only identify your tribe as being served by the proposed project. While your program may serve some victims who are members of other federally recognized tribes, you cannot represent your tribe as serving them unless those tribes have specifically authorized you to seek funding on their behalf. Authorized designees and tribal consortia applicants should identify each federally recognized tribe who has authorized their application for funding as being served by the applicant. Next slide, please. As it relates to the project summary, it is really important that you try to limit your project summary to no more than 200 words. It is meant to be a brief summary of your proposed project that highlights the key details. Next slide, please. The description of needs section. Ideally, this section should be data-driven. If you currently operate a victim services program, you should use the data you have collected to help demonstrate the need for your project. If you do not have a victim services program, look at data from other sources, such as data from the tribal or local police department, social services, and/or tribal court. If you cannot locate any quantitative data to demonstrate the need, you are encouraged to include 1 to 2 stories that illustrate the challenges crime victims face in the population to be served that you will address with this funding. If you are using stories, do not include names or any personally identifiable information about crime victims. This section should also describe the specific population of victims your project will serve and describe the gaps in current services for them that you will use with this funding. Ultimately, this section justifies every resource you are proposing to pay for with your TVSSA funding. Next slide, please. The project design and implementation section. This section consists of 2 checklists that answer the 2 questions identified in this slide. Use this section to clearly identify the specific forms of victimizations you are proposing to use the funding to address and the specific services and activities that you are proposing to provide to those victims. Keep in mind that this section must be logically related to your description of need. For example, if your description of need establishes that you are seeking funding to address existing gaps in services for victims of sexual assault, you should not indicate or check bullying in this section. Similarly, if you did not establish in your description of need that your community needs to complete a community needs assessment and strategic plan in order to better understand the needs of crime victims, do not check conducting a needs assessment and/or developing a strategic plan in this section. Next slide, please. The project goals and objectives. Your goals should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. They should define exactly what your proposed project will accomplish in a way that makes it easier to track and monitor progress. SMART goals are useful throughout the life of the grant award and should be revisited periodically to assess whether your program is making progress towards achieving your goals and objectives. This information provides you with an important opportunity to revise your project goals and objectives and reprogram grant funds in consultation with your OVC grant manager before the period of performance expires. This is even more critical now that the TVSSA program is operating on a 5-year period of performance, and it is extremely unlikely that OJP will extend your period of performance beyond your award's end date. Weak objectives create problems at every stage of the project timeline. They make data collection difficult, complicate completing performance reports, and raise questions about how your tribe defines success. Strong, SMART goals help project staff understand what they are working towards, make it easier to measure and define success, and complete performance reports. Next slide, please. Project staff. This is a section where you'll want to highlight your tribe's experience delivering the proposed services and other activities described in previous sections. If you already have someone in the staff position you are proposing to include in the budget for the application, identify them by full name, summarize their relevant qualifications and prior experience related to their assigned duties and responsibilities on the project. If you will need to hire someone to fill the position, enter TBD, to be determined, and write about your desired qualifications and experience for the ideal candidates who will be hired to fill the role. You are advised to keep your descriptions brief and strongly encouraged to attach the resumes of current staff as well as position descriptions to your application in Just Grants. Next slide, please. As it relates to the project management, the percentage of time, effort charged to the grant for the supervisor's time spent supervising grant-funded staff must be reasonable. So somewhere between 5 to 15%, depending on the number of grant-funded FTEs. If you are proposing to charge a higher percentage of their time effort to the grant, you must include greater justification, including a description of the specific grant-related tasks that the supervisor will complete in addition to supervising grant-funded staff. Next slide, please. Contractors and consultants. If your project is using contractors, consultants, or subrecipients, use this section to identify them and summarize their relevant qualifications and experience that demonstrate that they are likely to be able to carry out their assigned roles and responsibilities. Next slide, please. So now let's talk about some tips for preparing your proposal narrative questionnaire. One tip is do not overpromise on how much you can reasonably accomplish. For an example, do not propose to serve 75 victims in 6 months if your program has never served more than 25 victims in a year. The second tip is do not commit to a goal that is not measurable. Every objective that supports your goals should be linked to a specific data source and a staff member who will be responsible for collecting the data. The third tip is do not forget to attach your project timeline to your application. It is helpful for OVC to evaluate whether your objectives are realistic. Post-award, your OVC grant manager will review your project timeline to measure your progress as part of OVC's monitoring and oversight responsibility. It should be based on what is practical and realistic given the resources that you have to implement the proposed project. And lastly, do not write your proposed narrative questionnaire and budget separately. In other words, every item in your budget must connect to a specific activity in your proposal narrative questionnaire. Next slide, please. So in the previous slide, I talked about the budget, and so now I will evaluate or elaborate about the budget and the associated documentation. Next slide, please. So as in previous years, your application must include a detailed line item budget using the Just Grants budget detail form, which is the Excel workbook, and it must include the budget narrative for each item in the budget. The budget detail form collects the individual costs under each cost category needed to implement your proposed project. Applicants should ensure that the name or description of each cost is clear and provide the detailed calculation. For an example, it should include the cost per unit and number of items or units for the total cost. Applicants should enter additional narrative as needed to fully describe the cost calculations and connection to the project goals and objectives, including, if applicable, describing connections to OJP priority goals. Budget proposals should include the funding needed to implement the proposed activities. In preparing the budget proposals, applicants should consider what types of costs are allowable. Costs are allowable when they are reasonable, allocable, and necessary for the performance of the project. You may propose a budget that is less than the anticipated award ceiling amount. However, the budget should be reasonable to conduct the proposed budget and be within the applicant's capability or capacity to manage. Next slide, please. So here are a few tips for developing your budget. The first tip is you should complete the budget detail worksheet in its entirety. Number 2, you should account for facility construction or renovation if applicable. You should also write a strong budget narrative, and you should create a tracking system for the supplemental awards. Next slide, please. Along with your budget detail form in Just Grants, your application may also require additional attachments. For those applicants with a current federally recognized or federally approved indirect cost rate agreement, you should upload it as an attachment in Just Grants. Additionally, if you propose a rate for a consultant on your project that is higher than the established maximum rate, then you will need to request approval before incurring costs at a rate over and above $650 per day or over and above $81.25 per hour. Next slide, please. As it relates to the new 5-year project, each TVSSA award funded across the 5-year period makes up the cumulative grant award total. That said, each award must be individually tracked by you as the grant recipient within financial ledgers and will be monitored by OVC grant managers. Next slide, please. Construction. So now I will talk about the construction component of the budget. Next slide, please. All applicants proposing to use TVSSA funds for renovation or construction activities, including the purchase, installation, and site preparation for modular buildings, mobile homes, trailer homes, and other prefabricated structures, must complete and upload the separate TVSSA construction renovation questionnaire in addition to the timeline. For applicants that elect to schedule an interview with OVC staff, an OVC staff member will complete the questionnaire during the interview. For guidance on expenses and activities associated with minor renovations, major renovations, and construction, please see the TVSSA budget guidance chart. Next slide, please. So some examples of allowable construction costs include installation, setup of modular and other prefabricated structures, site preparation, additions to the structures and other major renovations, and other types of work on site necessary to improve or enhance the victim services facility, including sidewalks, park areas or parking areas, fencing areas, etc. OVC directs grantees to prioritize prefabricated construction technology, but will consider approval of traditional construction such as stick-built construction plans when a case can be made that that approach is more effective. Next slide, please. The National Environmental Policy Act, known as NEPA, requires federal agencies to evaluate the environmental effects of federally funded projects and inform the public about the project's environmental impacts. Before construction or renovation projects can begin, the NEPA review compliance process must be completed. Depending on the complexity of the project, the environmental analysis can take up anywhere from 6 months up to 1 year to complete. This analysis timeline must be a factor of consideration in the applicant's overall construction project timeline. If construction is proposed, an award condition withholding will be applied to the amount allocated in the construction category of the budget until the environmental analysis is complete. OJP technical assistance providers will conduct the analysis. However, grantees are required to work with the OJP technical assistance providers by providing the necessary information about the project to enable the analysis. Delays in providing the necessary information will prolong the environmental analysis timeline. So now this brings me to the end of the information for the budget and associated documentation section of the application process. And I will now turn it back over to my colleague, Lori.
Thank you, Ramisa. We will now share a brief overview of the application submission process. Next slide, please. First, I want to touch on what should be included in your application. At a minimum, applicants must include a completed web-based proposal narrative questionnaire, a budget detail worksheet, and an application timeline. Again, if you are proposing to use TVSSA funds for construction or renovation activities, you must complete and upload the construction renovation questionnaire in addition to the web-based proposal narrative questionnaire. And for those of you who are experienced OJP grantees, you know that typically if an award is made, but we're missing any of the information, we will have to withhold funds until we get those documents. Next slide, please. Before you can even begin to apply for funding, you must first register or renew your entity with SAM.gov. Your entity must register with SAM.gov and obtain a unique entity identifier, and you must maintain an active SAM.gov registration status at all times. For entities new to SAM.gov, the registration process can take some time, so please start early to be sure your status reaches the active stage before you submit an application. If you haven't already, you should definitely start this process immediately. For those not new to SAM.gov, you still need to renew your registration every 6 months. Even if you have applied for a federal grant before, you need to check that your registration is current and be sure to renew if it's not. Applicants who do not have an active SAM.gov status will not be able to complete step 1 of the application process in grants.gov. Also, be sure that your organization's points of contact in SAM.gov are up to date, especially the electronic business point of contact or eBiz POC are current. The eBiz POC may receive notices about time-sensitive actions that need to take place during the application process. The process for submitting your application begins in grants.gov. Once you've located the funding opportunity in grants.gov, you will complete the SF 424. And this is the extent of the application requirement in grants.gov. Once your application has been submitted and validated in grants.gov, it will be sent to Just Grants for completion. Keep in mind, it may take several days for grants.gov to complete the validations and release it to Just Grants. And then you will complete the rest of your application in Just Grants. Next slide, please. Again, there are 2 application steps, each with their own deadline. You must submit the required SF 424 by the grants.gov deadline of August 6th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. Once you have submitted the form in grants.gov, you submit the rest of your application in Just Grants by August 13th at 8:59 p.m. Eastern. We encourage you to not wait until close to the deadline to submit your application. Please keep in mind during the final step of submission, the Just Grant system will check your application for completeness. Unfortunately, we have had applicants fail to successfully submit their application because the NOFO deadline passed before this validation process was completed. Those that are completed after the deadline will not be considered for funding. The Just Grant submission should include all the items that are required in the NOFO. For technical assistance submitting your application in any of these platforms, please contact the appropriate help desk listed in the NOFO and then at the end of this training. Next slide, please. The SF 424 is the required standard form for submission in grants.gov. The federal award amount requested on the SF 424 should match your budget summary of the budget worksheet. In Section F of the SF 424, please be sure to include the appropriate name and contact information of the individual who will complete the application materials in Just Grants. Just Grants will use this information, including the email address, to assign the application to this user in Just Grants. Next slide, please. In Just Grants, there is also a lobbying form that needs to be completed. All applicants must disclose the existence or non-existence of lobbying activities by completing and submitting the SFLLL. Each applicant must complete and submit this information. An applicant that does expend any funds for lobbying activities is to provide all of the information requested on this form. An applicant that does not expend any funds for lobbying activities is to simply enter NA in the text boxes for item 10. Next slide, please. Along with your attached narrative budget detail worksheet and other required forms in Just Grants, your application may require additional documents. As required, remember to include your timeline and then, if applicable, attach resumes of existing key staff. And again, if applicable, attach your tribal authorizing resolution and the construction renovation questionnaire. As Remus mentioned earlier, for those applicants with current federally approved indirect cost rate agreements, you should attach that as well. Additionally, if you propose a rate for a consultant on your project that is higher than the established maximum rate, you will need to request approval before incurring those costs. Next slide, please. This slide shows a full list of the application requirements. You can use this checklist and review in your review prior to submitting your application. Next slide, please. During the review process, OVC may contact you to clarify program or budget details. After the Just Grants deadline has passed, OVC will complete a review of all applications. We will evaluate the fiscal integrity of the applicant, examine proposed costs, and determine whether the budget and the budget narrative accurately explain the project costs and whether those costs are allowable and reasonable. Please see the OJP Application Resource Guide for information on the application review process for formula grants. Next slide, please. If your application has been funded, specific Just Grant users for this organization will be notified by email, and you will see the award appear in their Just Grants account. If you do receive a notice of award, you must take specific steps in Just Grants to accept or decline it. The DOJ award acceptance checklist on the Just Grants website can walk you through those steps. Next slide, please. Next, I will walk you through the many resources that are available to help you through the application process. Next slide, please. Grants.gov has a very comprehensive quick start guide to help you register for and apply to OVC funding opportunities. This guide includes sections on registering, roles, workspaces, completing forms, and submitting your application. Next slide, please. The Just Grants website has a collection of resources that are available for you to use. Training materials include self-guided e-learning videos, supplemented by job aid reference guides, checklists, and various infographics. These resources can really help you learn to navigate the system to complete various tasks during the application process. Next slide, please. The DOJ application submission checklist includes step-by-step instructions on preparing your application. The resource guide addresses a variety of policies, statutes, and regulations that apply in many, or in some cases all, OJP program applicants or to grants and cooperative agreements awarded in fiscal 2026. You may notice some OJP programs may have a program NOFO that expressly modify a provision of the guide. In such cases, the applicant is to follow the guidelines in the NOFO as to any expressly modified provision. Next slide, please. The DOJ Financial Guide is the primary reference manual to assist OJP, OVW, and the COPS office award recipients in fulfilling their fiduciary responsibility to safeguard grant funds and to ensure funds are used for the purposes for which they were awarded. I highly recommend you bookmark this website or download the financial guide as a PDF. Next slide, please. Please remember to visit the OVC website to learn more about OVC's funding, OVC's history and funding, find multimedia products, and register for upcoming events. Next slide, please. Today, we've given you a brief overview of how to apply for the OVC FY26 TVSSA NOFO. For further detailed training on application submission, you can attend a live weekly training session, download detailed training slides, or watch a pre-recorded version of the training. Next slide, please. Some helpful tips. Be sure to start your application in grants.gov and Just Grants as soon as possible to confirm you have access. If possible, submit your application before the due date in grants.gov, which is August 6th and August 13th in Just Grants. OJP will only accept late applications if an applicant can demonstrate there is a technical reason they could not submit. So you will want to ensure you have plenty of time to address any technical issues. Just Grants can be reached by the phone number and email listed on the slide. When contacting any of these help desks, please be sure to request a tracking number so that you can document that you did seek assistance with your issue. This will be critical in the event you have a technical issue that prevented you from submitting your application. And finally, keep in mind that you will also need to contact OVC by email at the OVC Travel Set Aside email listed on this slide, should you experience any technical issues. Keep in mind, again, you will need to be able to document any technical issues, which is why starting your application early and maintaining those tracking numbers is critical. You can also reach out to the OVC Travel Set Aside email address along the way as you fill out your application for any other questions you may have about your application. Next slide, please. And if you need assistance when registering or working in SAM.gov or grants.gov, please contact their help desks directly. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to turn it over to Serena to conclude our FY 2026 Tribal Victim Services Set Aside Notice of Funding Opportunity Pre-Application Webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Librita, Kimberly, Ramisa, and Lori for that thorough overview of this important funding opportunity. We hope you find the information presented here today helpful. If you are interested and eligible for this NOFO, here are the next steps to take. Access the NOFO at grants.gov or ovc.ojp.gov. Register in grants.gov early. This process can take several weeks. Review program-specific application deadlines and requirements, and contact the OVC Tribal Division for assistance at ovctribalsetaside@ojp.usdoj.com. And for more information for the Office of Victims of Crime, please visit them at ovc.ojp.gov. Thank you so much.